Welcome to Ground Control, and I have the Eachine P47 Razorback 500mm Wingspan ready to fly Warbird. So this is courtesy of Banggood. I want to thank Banggood for sending this item for review. So you get your transmitter, you get your plane, some assembly is required. It's all straightforward, very simple. I want to go over what came in the box, some quick functions on the transmitter, a little bit about the plane, then we're going to go out and fly it, do some test flights on it, and then we'll come back here and I'll go over the details with you, including the assembly. But it comes with the transmitter of the plane, comes with a manual, comes with a spare prop. And I received the 2 battery version, so it comes with two 1S 500 milliamp hour LiPos, and it has the little flat white connector on it. I've heard this referred to as a lossy connector, a Walkera connector, a flat white connector. I am just not sure what the actual correct nomenclature is for this connector, but you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so 2 of those batteries. It comes with the USB charger. It comes with a screwdriver. It comes with a spare retainer for a control horn. And so when we get back here, I will tell you how I have mine set up with my linkage. The transmitter is mode 2, power switch. So the throttle is on the left-hand side and the aileron elevator are on the right. And the rudder is also on the left. This has 3 mode. This is a 3-mode gyro system. So you have beginner mode, which is fully stabilized. You have the center position, which is intermediate mode. And then let's see here. I'm not sure. Yeah, so advanced. They've got the advanced or manual mode all the way back, all the way forward. And then center position, intermediate, and pulling all the way toward you is beginner mode, so fully stabilized. You have a return to home button here, and it's not really a return to home button, but it will, the plane, if you record the nose position of your plane when you get ready to launch, the direction in which you're going to launch it. So let's say I'm going to fly toward you. So I've got my plane sitting on the ground, and I've got my transmitter powered on, and then I power on my plane, and everything is bound up, and then I press this button to record the direction in which I'm going to launch the plane. Okay, so now that is recorded. So if I get the plane too far away from me and I can't tell orientation anymore, I don't know if it's going away from me or coming toward me, I can push this button and the plane will turn back in the opposite direction in which it was launched. In other words, toward you. Now, the only way that this is going to work is once you record the direction in which you're going to launch the plane, you keep the plane in front of you in that direction. Don't fly behind yourself. If you fly behind yourself and you hit this button, the plane is going to continue to head in the opposite direction in which it was launched, which will now be away from you. So you need to be aware of that. Make sure that you keep the plane out in front of you. Okay, what is normally the throttle trim is the high and low rate button. So pull it down and you're in low rate, push it up and you're in high rate, and I would assume that this will always start in low rate, but you can always click that button to low rate to make sure before you launch it. And then you have your trim buttons for your rudder, your aileron, and your elevator. It takes 4 AA batteries on this. So with that, now that we've gone over the functions of the transmitter and the return home button and the high low and low rate button, let's go out and throw it in the wind and see how it handles. Now I have to tell you that when I checked the plane, once I got it all assembled with the flight battery pushed as far forward as I could possibly get it, it seemed to me that this plane was very tail heavy. So I am going to be adding some ballast weight to my plane. If that works out, when we get back, I'll tell you exactly what I did, how much weight I added, where I added the weight, so that you can do the same thing to get it flying extremely well. So I'll see you out at the field.
Alright, are we ready to get our Eachine Mini P47 in the air? We'll see how my ballast weight works. A little drink of coffee here. Alright, so one thing on this transmitter. Some of these toy transmitters come with a loop for a lanyard, and some of them don't, and this one does not. I really wish they would all start putting these lanyard hooks on these transmitters. It's a lot easier having your transmitter, at least for me, having my transmitter hanging off on a lanyard, so I'm not having to hold it and launch it at the same time. So, yeah, I wish they had done that. Anyway, I got a timer in my pocket. I've got it set for 7 minutes. I forgot to mention that this does have battery telemetry, so you're supposed to get a beep if the transmitter battery is low or if the airplane battery is low. I'm going to go ahead and start my timer now. Have very little wind out here today. I have it in beginner mode. So let's see if it'll fly. Well, it is flying. Look at that. That's just rudder that I'm using there. It's been a while since I have flown one of these micros. That is pretty darn stable. These gyros that they put on these little tiny microplanes, I'm just stunned at how stable these things are. Look at that. That is sweet. Whee! That is flying really, really well. And it looks like it has good slow flight capability. Now in gyro mode, I don't know how well the balance is on it. Okay, so now I'm doing bank and yank here. Do a little bank and yank. You actually have good turn radius even in beginner mode. Look at that. That is a really good turn radius. And that's just bank and yank. Throttle it up a little bit. That wasn't even full stick deflection there, guys. Yeah. So beginner mode on this plane is not nearly as restrictive as I have seen it on other planes. That's for sure. You can turn pretty tight with this in beginner mode. That's full right stick right there. That's full left stick. Okay, now let's do some rudder turns with it. That's full right rudder. So you do need to put in a little aileron with it. Little rudder, little aileron right now. Little rudder, little aileron. I have the elevator in the bottommost hole on the control horn, and it does seem a little twitchy on the stock transmitter. But this thing is cruising around nicely. This is another really, I think, another really good beginner plane from Eachine. This is just, you know, really easy to fly. I'm flying around between 80 to 100% throttle with it. Throttle back a little bit. Well, it doesn't seem like it's flying in a nose up attitude. So maybe my nose ballast on there is going to be good. I don't know. Let's gain a little altitude, and then I'll put it in intermediate mode. Well, I tell you, if it's got this much control movement in beginner mode, it might be a little crazy in intermediate. Oh, look at that. Yeah. Okay, I just put it back in beginner mode. It is really, really twitchy in intermediate mode, guys. And it did look like it was still tail heavy to me. So I would definitely keep this one in beginner mode. I may have to add more nose ballast to it, because when I switched it in to intermediate mode, it immediately tilted that nose up. But a nice flying plane in beginner mode. Oop. I think I about stalled it there. I wanted to do one of those, you know, roller coaster turns with it, you know. That's pretty slow. I don't know how slow you can go and keep it in the air, but that's pretty darn slow, don't you think? Let's see. Yeah, that is pretty darn slow. So it does have, you know, in beginner mode, it does have good slow flight capability, which I love. And then a nice looking airframe too. Whee! A little sensitive on the elevator. I think I may take a look at that elevator servo and see where the linkage is. Oh, I've been flying it for 7 minutes already? Is amazing. Alright, let me get one hand free here and see if I can turn off my timer. There we go. I did it. I was flying it with one hand. Okay, so let's bring it in here. I want the sun in front of it. Let's see if we can bring it in here and land it on our little lane here. Can we do that? Oh, nice. Look at that. I love that. I love that. Those bigger wheels and tires on these 500mm Wingspan planes. That is awesome. Wasn't that a great flying little plane? And yeah, I was talking about seeing if I can see where the control rod is on the servo arm for the elevator, because it's a little twitchy, and see if I can get that moved to one of the inner holes on the servo arm so that the elevator doesn't quite have as much movement and it's not quite as twitchy as it was. The rudder and the ailerons felt great. They felt pretty smooth. You can make nice coordinated turns with it using the elevator and the rudder. It makes very shallow turns with the rudder, but I don't have a lot of movement in the rudder. So I think I might move that linkage too for the next flight when we bring it back out again. But yeah, Eachine's got another hit on their hands with this little plane in beginner mode. I didn't care for it in intermediate mode. And it still felt a little tail heavy even with the ballast that I have on it. So I'll meet you back at the hangar. I'll tell you exactly how I've got mine set up, what kind of ballast weight I've got on it and how I've got it set up on there. So I'll see you back at the hangar.
Well, I thought that went very well. It's extremely stable in the air. In beginner mode, I didn't care for the intermediate mode, but most of them have been that way that I have flown until you get your adjustments made so they're not so twitchy in intermediate mode. So I think one thing that I will do before I take it back out is I will move, well, first off, I have all my control surface linkages connected to the outer hole on all the control surfaces, the ailerons, the elevator, the rudder. Now the elevator on the stock transmitter feels a little twitchy to me, but as luck would have it, the control rod on the elevator servo is in the outer hole on the servo arm, which means I will be able to move that to the inner hole and soften up that elevator. So I will do that before I take it out for its next flight session and see if that takes the twitchiness out of the elevator. It should. I also found that when I was flying it around, when I was doing turns with rudder only, the turns were very shallow and very wide. So I currently have the linkage connector on the outside hole of the servo, the control horn for the rudder, so I will be moving that to the inner hole, and I think that will give me the amount of rudder that I would like to have. The ailerons actually felt pretty nice. The rudder was smooth, but not quite enough movement. So increase that, decrease the elevator. I still do not have the nose weight where I would like to have it. So I think I'm actually going to add a little more ballast weight to the nose, just temporarily. And before I make any more adjustments to it, I want to go out and fly it with a TX16S transmitter to see if I can glean more information on what I need to do before I make any other adjustments on it. So the adjustments that I just spoke about, I think it's safe to go ahead and increase the movement on the rudder, because that wasn't twitchy at all on the stock transmitter. The ailerons I'm going to leave as they are. The elevator I'm going to leave as it is until I have a chance to do a flight session with the hobby grade transmitter to see if the elevator also feels twitchy when you have more stick resolution. So I will do that before I modify the linkage on the servo arm, and if it feels like it's very, very responsive with the hobby grade transmitter, I will definitely be moving that. But I will do whatever I need to do to get it flying smoothly as I can on the stock transmitter. When I'm completed with it. Now the battery. I would recommend you get a little piece of pluck foam or something. I push the battery as far forward as I could possibly get it. Now I recommend you take something with you when you go fly this. What I use is a pencil with one of those big wide eraser tips that you can put on the end of it. It's very blunt on the end. So I put the battery in, and then I use that to push this battery as far forward as I could possibly get it, because it is tail heavy right out of the box. So let me pull the battery out of here. There we go. So I had that pushed as far forward as it would possibly go, but in order to keep it there, get a piece of pluck foam or something to push in there behind the battery so that the battery doesn't slide backward. Now I was going to take a piece of pluck foam with me, and I forgot. But what I did have with me was a bunch of Velcro. So I looped the Velcro up, made a big donut out of it, and then, pushing it in there provides enough force against the inside of the battery cavity, the battery compartment, that it would stay and keep the battery from falling backward. All right, I did put ballast weight on this before I ever took it out and flew it, because I sat down with it, I put the battery in it, pushed it as far forward as I could get it, and then I measured 30% back from the leading edge of the wing of the root cord, and it balanced pretty far back. So I wanted to bring the CG as far forward as I could before the first flight. So I'll go ahead and put a picture up on the screen now. What I used were 2 American pennies. They weigh 2.5 grams each. There's 2 of them in there, so that gives me 5 grams of nose weight. And I wanted to put the weight out as far on the nose as I could get it, so I could use the least amount of ballast weight possible. And then I just tacked it in there with a little hot glue. Now, when I put it into intermediate mode, it immediately nosed up on me. So I kind of got the feeling that it is still a little nose heavy. The all-up weight on this, before I put any ballast weight on it, was 92.5 grams. So now I'm at 97.5 grams. It seemed to carry that just fine, even very slowly. So I'm going to take another penny, weighs 2.5 grams. That will be 7.5 grams of nose weight on here. I think that might get it where it needs to be, and that will put my all-up weight at what, 99 grams even, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do that before I take it out next time with the hobby grade transmitter, and get it all trimmed out so it's flying nice and pretty. And as soon as I get everything set up and working the way I want it to, then I will upload that information on our Facebook page, the setup file and the OpenTX model file. I have it set up currently on the OpenTX transmitter. I have the gyro set up. The gyro settings are working fine. So we'll see how it flies with the TX16S. I do like these larger planes. They don't have nearly as much power as the 400s do, so they're not going to be able to do much in the way of aerobatics. But for just cruising around with it as a beginner plane with the bigger wheels and tires, I really like the size of these 500mm Wingspan planes. Okay, so stay tuned for the next flight session with the hobby grade transmitter, and then I will determine exactly what kind of additional adjustments we do need to make to this plane to get it flying perfectly. I will be putting on that additional nose weight before I take it out again. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you in the air.